All right, so let's see. Right, so last week we got started with the continuous integration. We've asked you to create accounts for all the members in an organization, and we're going to be working with the organizations to set their folders and give you the correct permissions so that you can set up continuous integration for eventually automatic deployment to Heroku. We're not going to do that just yet. First, we want to make sure that we can connect to your GitHub repository, that we can download all your source code, make it build locally, maybe run tests and whatnot. Eventually, perhaps next week, we want to make sure that we only deploy to Heroku if all tests pass. We want to configure also some notifications, making sure that folks are communicative if something goes wrong, and that it becomes making sure that the health of the build is everybody's business, right? That you get notified and make sure that you jump on that right away if something is wrong, and we're not blocking anyone else. Also, last week we did some acceptance testing. We're gonna revisit that a little bit. We talked about it somewhat informally, on setting up some steps for describing how the behavior of some of the components should work. Today we're going to talk about that a little more formally from the point of view of the QA engineer. Quality assurance, that's the topic for this lecture. After or during the implementation, it's very important that we keep in the loop the QA engineer from very early on, from the design phase, so that they can start designing tests that they can either run manually or that they can automate, and are part of the discussions of the requirements, so they can also participate in the challenging or questioning of the requirements, whether that's as part of the even the development team, right? That you always want to make sure that we are all building the application that is needed. So we'll talk about quality assurance. It has quality assurance has changed over the years quite a bit. Has become more and more technical, as opposed to just trying to find where the application breaks. Today it has become much more technical, where folks are starting to automate a lot of these tasks, being able to run the tests against the user interface, automate them so that they can be run repeatedly and give us some confidence that the user interface works correctly. So we'll talk about quality assurance today. This Friday we'll talk about a tool that is very common for quality assurance to use today to automate a lot of their work, which is Selenium. Selenium is a tool, an open source project that allows QA engineers to automate a lot of what they normally would do manually. They can record their manual steps and save them as scripts so that they can run them repeatedly, and they can be also made part of the continuous integration process, so that whenever we see something go through the continuous integration build, we are confident that we don't have any regressions, that it's behaving as we expect. So we'll talk about Selenium when we come back on Friday. So today we'll focus on QA and some of the concepts and techniques that quality assurance QA folks use. So we're quickly approaching towards the end of the course. The last couple of weeks, they're intended to focus more on just working on the project. We focus mostly on the admin side of the project, and what I'd like to do is for the last several weeks is to kind of let you go on your own, right, and start completing the rest of the application, which is the front end part, right? That is the facing the consumer, right? The actual users logging in, registering, actually searching for a service, getting answering actual questions. So we've been focusing mostly on the admin side, right? Keeping it simple, just with simple tables, simple lists, simple forms, just for us to gain confidence on the technology. Hopefully by the end of this week, perhaps we feel confident enough that we can start tackling things that are a little more open-ended, a little less structured, and work on some client-facing features, right? So yeah, so that's perhaps starting next week or maybe end of next week. When we meet together, we'll be working on working on the rest of the application, which I think will be a little more interesting than creating just lots of tables and just plain old forms. Okay. Any questions? I'm working through some issues that folks have pointed out on the midterm, so I'm identifying that some of the questions might have been written a little more clearer, that there was some inconsistency, and so I'll probably give you full credit for some of the questions. I might have done it already for some of the questions. You might have seen some of your scores for the midterm go up slightly. So that's I'm going to continue doing this week. All right. Any questions?